And we're live. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Conscious Conversations. Joining me today is two wonderful, fantastic creators of content. And that is not all they create in this world. They create a lot of reasons to be grateful. I know from my own personal experience with them, that is the truth. And I'm positive that I do not stand alone in gratitude to them. So, without further ado, welcome to Gratitude and Other Consciousness Shifting Techniques. How are you guys doing today?
Very, very good.
Great.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm humbled to be here.
I love that every time I interact with you, Brandon, you make it a point to really illustrate, in every way that you can, the gratitude that you live your life with. And I think that it's something that all of us, if we took a little more time to be mindful of, would be feeling that way a lot more often.
Oh, I thank you as well. It's just simply just acting with a more humble person like yourself as well, Josh. It's just simply baffling as well that I'm able to have a presence of a like-minded individual, so we can intercommunicate our perspectives, and so we may bring awareness to these topics about the world and just simply create a shift in our own perspectives on how we see life.
Indeed, Anthony has really helped me recently in shifting my own perspective of what I do. And I believe that that has been one of the greatest keys for the direction that I find myself following. And I honestly, I hope you know how grateful I am for all the help you do, Anthony.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you.
I'm also
always
grateful,
happy
Anthony.
to help.
My vlog episodes, they start out with the three things I'm most grateful for today. And so since there's three of us, I think it'd be cool if, since this is kind of the subject today, if we could take a second to just breathe deep and think about something today that we are just deeply grateful for in our life. And I'll start, and then I'll let you guys go, and that'll get our three things to be deeply grateful for today. For me, my deep gratitude comes in a simple form. I was mentioning this a little bit to you before we started the call, Brandon, that last night before I went to bed, I got this little craving for the waffles I saw in my freezer earlier. And as I was going to go lay down, I thought to myself, that's what I want to have for breakfast tomorrow. It's been a long time since I've eaten waffles for breakfast or at any time. I really want some waffles. That would be wonderful. And I got up this morning, and before I ever had a chance to actually say anything to anyone, I got up and I got ready. And when I came out of the bathroom from getting my shower, I spotted that my daughter had just decided that she was going to make waffles, and she made me a stack of waffles, and they were sitting there ready for me on my desk in my home office. And so those little things that we do for each other, that's my deepest gratitude this morning. Is thank you to my daughter Loretta. You're awesome, and I so appreciate you.
I can really sense the passion in your words, Joshua.
They were really good waffles.
Yeah, that's just a great synchronous event as well. That I mean, you had that intention, and that kind of carried over into, I guess, maybe she just plucked that idea out of the air and just thought, hey, I fancy making some waffles. There you go.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So what are you grateful for today, Anthony?
Well, today we went out and did some filming, and as always when we do some filming, you know, I'm sat in meditation for a while, and one thing I'm grateful for there is the internal conversation we can have with the universe, and that's not always internal. That can be like external as well. I mean, I guess so. It's anyway expression. It's the expression of what makes you feel alive, and that can be anything as subtle and unseen as, you know, internal meditation, or it can be something as profound and extrovert as dancing, or um, you know, singing. You know, anything like that. So I'm grateful for the ways in which we can express and converse with the universe, which is ultimately ourselves.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
What about you, Brendan?
Well, I could say that I am mostly grateful for just simply being able to just simply open my eyes, but even in the uniqueness of how my body moves, because every single day my body is moving so unique to itself. It does not move in the same position once or even twice. We're mammals, we're humans, and we're beings of repetition, but in that uniqueness that we have within ourselves, we move in a type of just every single step is a unique step, and every single step is a step for us to create change within ourselves. But one thing that I'm mostly grateful for is just that these days I have been seriously gaining back this awareness of myself, and just simply just like being grateful that I am here, that every single time I just have to remind myself I am here, I am present, because sometimes I just get too much trapped within my thoughts of my mind. I just keep on getting dwelled within my thoughts. That's why one of my favorite meditations is just simply connecting with yourself, connecting with just that silence, calming the ego, calming the monkey mind, and just simply just like being there. Just like a great metaphor. If you ask a fish, do you know that you're living in water? The fish would ask, water? What water? So in that way, that the fish, he is a part of it, not knowing it that not knowing it that there is an ocean around him. So in that meditation, I always like to do is just simply just become a part of it. That I don't separate myself from the world. I am a part of the world. I am aware. I am not aware that it is separate from me. I know that I am a part of it. So I just simply just love to unify myself within those aspects within my mind. And also, another thing that I'm also grateful for is that when I just had a shower this morning, I just felt like I felt new. I felt like another being, another personality has entered within my own expression of who I am. And I just simply, I'm humbled, and that I really felt like that, like a new me has entered within my own psyche, and that I sometimes today, throughout the course of today, my mind talks to me now. My conscious, I talk to myself and I say, Brandon, would you like to have this cup of tea today? Would you like to have this meal today? So in that expression, I'm grateful that I'm aware of my most internal thoughts and my expression on how I do things. And now I made a dedication up to myself and to my practice that every single day as I live is going to become a ritual. When I wake up, it's going to become a ritual. I'm going to follow specific steps into being grateful for every step that I take, and being grateful for everything that I do when I sleep, when I walk, when I do everything. Such as tonight, I will be doing a ritual. And basically, like doing yoga, just to prepare myself, my intentions for the next day, so I can go into the next day with just simply ecstaticness. Because I feel like that in my life, I've been through a really downward spiral, and but now I'm starting to regain clarity and again. So that is why that every night from now on, I made it a promise to myself that I am just simply going to become aware of my thoughts on how I do things when I go to sleep. And then so when I go to sleep, I will have dreams of just positivity and gratitude. And how I read in a book of Sigmund Freud dream interpretations, everything that you do in today would stimulate you, and would stimulate you to proceed with that emotion with the next day, such as with the worlds that we create in, that such as in the book of the spiritual experiences of this author that I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I feel like I would be slaughtering his name in the book. He simply said that when we dream, we hear angels, and those angels, they love to stimulate what we dream in our book. They like to fight over what we dream. What type of dreams we would love to have. They compete over each other. Are you think that my mic is it's a bit dodgy, Joshua?
I don't know.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's something really strange going on with your microphone, Brandon. We heard all of what you said. It's just something going on with the microphone is really kind of scratchy, or it keeps cutting in and out.
And it wasn't like that before you started talking.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened there.
I don't know either as well. Shall I turn on the volume?
I'll try muting it and unmuting it and see if you get a better connection.
Okay, let me just. Is that better?
No, it's the same. You might need to reconnect, because yeah, it's really hard to. I find it quite hard to follow, and I have there's someone watching who just commented saying that it was a bit awkward to listen to that microphone.
Yeah. Oh. Just try to hang up from the video real quick and then come back in, and it's good in theory.
Technical difficulties.
Yes, that's I think one of the beautiful parts to doing these calls is getting that opportunity to have these technical difficulties and show everyone that it's okay when things happen.
Yeah, things go wrong, things go right.
I felt like I already explained what I'm grateful for. Let's just move on from there.
That's perfect. Much better, Brandon. I just want to say hello to my friend Flo, who's watching.
Hi, Flo.
Hi.
That's awesome.
So
let's talk about consciousness. I mean, why would you want to shift your consciousness in the first place? I mean, is that even possible? Isn't that just like things happen to us and that's why we feel the way we do, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's unlimited possibility and potential in every day. And one thing I wanted to say here, you just reminded me of something that was brought up yesterday, and that's the change and that sort of stagnant idea we were talking about. And I think that when we want to shift consciousness, when we kind of get stuck in a routine, I guess, because when we're young, we grow up and there's so much stimulus, every day is a new experience, and it's so fresh. You've just kind of been born into this world, and you're growing up, and there's something new every day, and you get the good and the bad, and next day it's changing again, and it's just all wild, and that kind of continues all the way through your adolescence and everything, even young adulthood, and until you get to this point where it feels like the routine becomes very sedimented, becomes very set in stone, and people kind of then get the same morning wake up routine, the same drive to work or transportation to work, same job, not much changes there, still pushing buttons, and then it kind of all just starts to feel the same. And maybe once in a while you get to spend time with your family, you get to go on a nice little holiday, and so these things get compressed, and then, you know, people start looking for something more, and you know, I think for a lot of people, we get these very typical things now, like midlife crisis, like nervous breakdown, you know, wanting, you know, going off and having a fling or an affair. Like these things kind of crop up as quite like a similar patterns for people. And I think that's because they want a shift in consciousness. Like, we need to learn, and we need to expand ourselves and find new and fulfilling experiences often, and share those experiences as well, you know. And so I think that's probably the drive for a shift in consciousness, is when things become the same too much. You get too much of the same. I mean, what do you think about that? Oh, you're still muted, Josh.
Yeah, I hit the button.
There we go.
Didn't realize it didn't actually turn off. All right, so
so yeah, so just asked what your thoughts on that whole idea.
I like that that you went that direction with it, because I mean, for me, I think that, you know, your life is the product of whatever you're repeatedly thinking about, whatever you're focused on. Mm-hmm. And so if you keep yourself anchored to one thought pattern or one area of thought patterns, you're always going to be in that set of troubled waters. You're always going to be feeling those same ways. And I mean, I know for me, I spent decades with depression. And it's not that I was always depressed at all times of every day, but when I would allow myself to begin to focus on or get stuck on certain thoughts, and stagnation is a really good word, because there's nothing new happening there. I mean, maybe it's great for some people if they want to eat the exact same thing at the exact same time every single day. For me, that would drive me insane, I think. It'd be too mundane, too boring within a week or two. I mean, I've got to have fluctuation myself, but that doesn't mean that's the case for everyone. But I think our thoughts, if they're not producing that feeling of, I'm grateful to be alive, I'm grateful for the opportunities ahead of me, I'm happy to wake up today because of the things I get to do today. If my thoughts aren't producing that, then I can't really think that my thoughts are going to be producing a very enjoyable life. And to me, you know, like we discussed yesterday, you know, with my near-death experiences, from my perspective, the whole purpose of life is to have fun, to enjoy yourself here. You're here to experience things. And if you don't like the things you're experiencing, that's like ordering something you know you don't like at a restaurant and eating it anyways, day in and day out. I just don't see the point.
That is very true. Is that I feel like that the main root cause of like, let's say, when people say like, oh gosh, man, this my life is so terrible, you know, man. It's more like let's say that their unawareness of that there is a different perspective. Like Terence McKenna once said, yeah, your glorious that yours I think you know him as well. He he once said that the what you hold you become. So therefore, if we keep on repeating ourselves in these lives, we will always become the same character. So therefore, we will always become so stagnant, so rigid, so in a plain sight, so molded. So that's why that we must change our perspectives. We must learn how to adapt. We must learn how to change direction at a notice. Like a like a fish running through the water. He cannot change the river itself because it's all natural, but he can change the direction where that river takes him, like the law of attraction and all of that. He can change the direction where the river takes him. So back to what I was saying about the root cause of it here. I feel like that the root cause, it would be a baby, innocent, just simply a lump of clay that can be easily molded, and that lump of clay is going to go through so many things and so many moldings, so many procedures of how society would like that child to be. That child will end up growing up and remaining stuck in a. I know that all of you will know this. The first three chakras, which the root, solar, and plexus, which many of us are still trapped in, is the solar plexus, which is ego. It is willpower to strive on and to keep on going, moving forward. It's power. And so that is why that many of us are still like ignorant. We think that our belief, it's the life of what we live in. So we need to first get past that barrier by first reconnecting and healing ourselves from within. When we have that here, when we have healed ourselves from within, it will ripple into the outside world. Therefore, it will change their perspective. So that's when you hear those cases of those people taking ayahuasca. They were so rigid and everything. So and then thereafter they become a whole different person. It's because that their perspective has changed. So if we can just become aware of this, and if we move up into the higher centers of the heart chakra, into love, healing ourselves, giving ourselves eternal love, and then putting that off to the next generation, we will expand further, and then we will expand further into the infinite, so that life can just merely be a way of different circumstances and different ways of unique ideas and expansion.
Very well said.
I like the point that you brought up there, Brandon, about how
the river.
Well, that was good too. Now, what I meant was that that source, that cause, it. I've lost the thought. Never mind. It happens. That's okay. I really did enjoy what you had to say there, and I know that it had something to do with that first bit you were talking about, the cause. But I think that the key that I was really wanting to point at, or point us in the direction of, is that it is a practice. I think that's something all three of us have kind of said. And like what you were saying a minute ago about it being a ritual, a daily ritual, a daily practice, a daily promise that you make to yourself. Because if our life is the result of our frequent thoughts, creating a bias which creates, a weight for one decision over another, which will produce tangible results. I mean, it's all a causative linking chain. And if that's the case, then we have the ability to analyze those frequently, repeated thoughts and feelings. We have the choice to start becoming aware of when we're repeating those cycles. We have the choice to pick something else to focus on. And, for me, that first thing when I get up in the morning, I have a practice that I think of, something to be grateful for. I do that because it's the first thing I'm thinking of in the day. And our brains, our consciousness is associative. So if you think of one thing, it's going to lead to a thought of another thing, which is going to lead to a thought of another thing. And so I want the start of that chain of thoughts to be gratitude, something really positive feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that way the ball is rolling in the direction I want it to go from the beginning.
That's probably a very good technique to practice if you're going through cycles of depression or anxiety or any, you know, downwards negative emotion. You know, I think because there are lots of people that go through depression. If you change the way you do it, it doesn't work, you know. Sorry?
It cut out right as you said. That's a good technique for people going through depression.
Yes, it's a good technique for going through depression to you know, to fixate on just as soon as the first thought comes into your mind, make it about love, gratitude, anything as highly positive as you can. You know, because people who are in negative cycles of depression and anxiety or any you know, downwards depressive emotion, if you just say to them, just change your mind, or, you know, just start feeling happy, you know, it doesn't work, you know. And you can probably remember, like, when we get in these states of depression, then it's just like people, you know, hitting a brick wall. You know, they don't get through to you, and you just feel like you don't get what's going on. You know, it's not. I really do believe that if there's anything you could say to someone in depression, it would probably be that, to get through and say, the first thing in the morning, do something you love in the morning, appreciate and give gratitude in the morning. And that really does set the trend. Like, we know this, we've heard this so many times now in so many studies, and so many people just say it. What you do in the morning affects your day. You know, you like get out on the wrong side of the bed, or, you know, you wake up and stub your toe or smack your head on something. It's like, one of those days. Yeah, you're going to make it one of those days, because that's how it's gone down in the morning. But even if something bad happens in the morning, and you turn it into something positive, or just see the light in some way, it's going to neutralize or even turn it into a far better day than what you believe it could be. So
I said that is when the negative thoughts are most at its weakest, and that's when like you said, that when you have negative thoughts, we must immediately think of something greater and positive than we actually are. That's when those thoughts are most negative as well. But what do you guys think about what type of techniques we can share with everyone on this broadcast about how we can just simply have gratitude and just be grateful for every single taste and sensation that we live every single day?
I love that you asked that question. I want to tie together what both of you just said and answer that question in my own little way. And that is to say, Anthony, like you were saying about the beginning of your day affects the rest of your day. It's just like if you were trying to build a house and you don't lay an even foundation. If you don't lay a good foundation, there's going to be problems with the house. Eventually, it's going to leak or fall or something equally bad. That house is your day. You might as well give it a good foundation. If for nothing else, then because you love yourself. And if you tightened up right then when I said that, then there's a good chance that you have fallen victim to the #1 mental plague in humanity today. And that is the idea that you're not enough, that you're not good enough for something. And so a technique that people could use that will go right alongside the technique of focusing on reasons to be grateful first thing when you get up. Find one thing at least that you can honestly say that you're thankful for. The next technique that I use and I recommend to people often is go to your mirror in your bathroom and write, "I am enough." I watched this lecture from this amazing woman named Marissa Peer, and she has a way of seeing through whatever the root cause of the problem is. And that was what she determined is the root cause of 99% of her clients' issues, is that they have some belief that says they're not enough. Well, the writing it on the mirror thing capitalizes on the exact same circuitry that we're talking about that first thought of the day. It's when you like you were saying, Brandon, those negative thoughts are at their weakest. It's because you haven't spent a lot of time thinking about them, building up your neurochemicals, being actively released to create feelings in your body. In that state, you want to go ahead and get that positive traction going, and you do so by planning messages for yourself. It doesn't have to be on your mirror, but it's a great place to put it. But anywhere that you are going to see in that first half hour you're awake is a great place to hide a message like that. It doesn't need to be prominent. You just need to be able to see it when you open your eyes, when you're up and walking around your house. My house is littered with these messages. I even got one right there. That one's to be mindful of, what is it that I'm building with my life? You know, what's trying to emerge in my life right now? That one's all about opening up and actually checking in with what I'm doing. Because for me and my own growth, my own I am not enough issues, I had spent, all that time depressed, believing that I was worthless. And so I never asked, what do I want? I never asked, what is my purpose in life? I just believed that I was here to be a people pleaser, to help everyone else, and do so with no thought of myself. And that's just as imbalanced as any other view. You yourself are as deserving as love as anyone else. And so taking that time to write messages for yourself is probably the best technique I can think of. That's simple, that anyone can do with a piece of paper, with some lipstick on the mirror, whatever you want to do it with.
Yeah, you're totally right. You need to fill up your own cup before you can overflow to someone else.
Is it that neurons that fire together, they stay together, so you will be repeating that cycle, so therefore you will always have that mindset of just being grateful.
Exactly. I love that quote. Neurons that fire together, wire.
That's it. Yeah.
It's a great Joe Dispenza quote there.
Neuroplasticity.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that I don't know. I just remembered it from the top of my head. I think I might have remembered it from a quote, but I don't remember that it was from a quote.
Yeah, that's one of the seminal phrases that really launched Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. I mean, he's a neuroscientist, and he's all about rewiring your consciousness. Helping you figure out that you don't have to stay in a fight or flight state every day of your life. You really shouldn't. It's what's causing most of your problems.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that one, the first time I heard that phrase from him, it really made me rethink a lot of the stuff I was doing. And it helped me look at an activity. This segues into another technique. An activity that I used to do a lot when I was depressed, and it would make me happy. I would have fun, and I wouldn't feel depressed while I was doing it. And for sometimes hours or even a day or two afterwards. And that activity was role-playing games with my friends. And, I don't mean video games. I mean where you and your nerdy buddies sit around with some books, some paper, and some dice and create a character who has a backstory, who cares about certain things, and you really get your mind in the idea of playing that role, feeling how that character
D&D,
feels.
is that right?
Yeah. D&D, World of Darkness, and dozens of others that I've played over the years.
I think that should come back. That's board games and stuff have all died out now, and everyone's just on digital games. But you know, I actually recently saw a YouTube channel where these guys were playing a Dungeons and Dragon game, but they had everything, like all the cameras kind of lined up, so they made it look like an authentic tale that they were going through while playing, and it was really cool. And you could just imagine, like, it brings back the power of the imagination, which is kind of lost these days on a lot of the new generations. And yeah, I mean, totally agree with what you're saying there about I kind of cut you off, so carry on. Sorry.
Perfect. No, that was perfect. That was a great segue into the power of imagination. You know, that whole, you are what you imagine you are. So you spend that time imagining that you are this amazing, confident paladin, healer, defender of the weak, then you're going to take on those traits and attributes. And it's going to be really hard to be depressed if that's how you think of yourself. You know, it's going to be really hard to be depressed if you are not thinking of yourself as some common person, if you are already imagining yourself on the hero's journey.
Right, yeah. Belief is everything.
True.
And all belief is a thought that you think repeatedly. That's it. That is a frequently held thought or thought pattern. Or a habit of thought, even.
It's like Keanu Reeves once said that with the depressed people, it's not that they have a mental illness. It's just that they see the truth about the world. So that can actually give you a lot to think about. That many people, and I feel like that you really resonate with this, Josh. Like many people in today's world, they become so desensitized to the fact that they don't see that the reason why depressed people how they are like that is because that they actually see the truth on how we treat each other in the world and how the world is. So you can see that anxiety, that sadness comes from just seeing the truth about how the world is. And so that was just the abbreviation of what Keanu Reeves said. So you could basically say that the main cause of everything, you could say, is my idea. Feel free to expand upon it. Just the main cause of like anxiety, depression is just like how we treat ourselves, and in thus how we treat our people, such as the 8 limbs of yoga, the yana, niyama, the second limb, how the first to the second limb, how we treat ourselves, therefore will dictate how we treat each other. If we don't have union within ourselves, we will not help the next generation, or even how we interact with people. So therefore, it will keep on sprouting a cycle of anxiety, of a war, of depression, of all. And it takes just simply a major catastrophe like a tsunami or an earthquake or to destroy or wipe out an entire civilization for an order for humans, us, to come together as one. Because there was this study done, but I don't know the numbers about it. They simply said that had this machine that they connected it to they connected two points of I think it was a machine that is saw the magnetic field of the Earth, and that they said that since like we destroyed the Earth and the planet and everything of the carbon dioxide, filling the ozone layer of the Earth, making the Earth more hotter. That when an accident happened, like 9/11, they literally said that the magnetic field of the Earth expanded. So that shows when we come together, it literally aids in the energy of the Earth. Because I saw this great series on missing links that's on this on this website called Gaia. Like Greg Braden, the TV show talk host, he simply said that on times of crisis, the Earth heals itself when we come together. So you could say that the reason why is so that everyone is in this constant state of flux, that scientifically you could say that it's because it's in our nature. It's that survival of the fittest. But in his words, not exactly in his words, so you don't get me wrong that I might get incorrect, that in his words, it said that it's not survival of the fittest, but it's really of cooperation and of mutual understanding between us. But of course, with the animals, it's a different story because it's their natural instinct to fight, to kill, because it's how they are. It's natural. It's not that they want to kill them because of something that they did to each other. They are conscious of that, but it's just simply of their natural way of living. But we are conscious of that. If we can just come together and, how I said again, find the root cause, heal ourselves, and heal our ways and how we interact with everyone, the world will literally start to change from a different way of living.
You're totally right, and that's how we've changed the world to date. I mean, you touched on a topic which kind of just shifted my consciousness in how we're organizing this talk, and we're kind of tailoring towards the modern perspective and the kind of now, the day-to-day life of people now. But let's look at the conscious shifting techniques of the past, of history. And it wasn't until we as a species decided to organize and cooperate together, rather than being that survival of the fittest attitude and just fighting each other for the nearest food source or the river or whatever. We organized and collected around rivers and around sources of life, and then started to organize the resources, started to count the resources, and then society comes out of that. We cooperate, and from cooperation, that's the backbone that we're built on now. That the reason the human race has become such a dominant force in the world and has been able to reach far out into the depths of consciousness expansion is cooperation. And through war and things like that, more recently, we've stumbled away from the idea of cooperation, because now we can have everything you want sorted out by machines, and we've kind of started to become more independent in that way. And so now I think, because where a lot of the first world societies are becoming more like this, we're seeing this need to reconnect with each other again, and the consciousness of the planet is going to shift in a way where we need to depend on each other. Otherwise we go back to, we take a step backwards, don't we? We fall out of society.
I think that you're right in line there. That whole idea of, I think it's technology that is, I cannot remember the scientist that he was referring to, but Jason Silva was giving a talk last year, and he talked about technology is a biological entity in and of itself. It's self-organizing and replicating. We are the appendages. We are the sexual reproduction organs of technology. And we're also the evolutionary imperative for it. And so I think that in a lot of ways, over the last 60, 70 years, people were really worried that technology was going to bring about our end. But that I think stemmed from that whole disconnect that you were talking about, that trend towards disconnecting from people. And now that we're seeing that trend shifting towards greater connection and greater cooperation, and not just locally but globally as well, I think that technology is evolving itself, adapting itself to very much provide that telepathic link, for lack of a better word, for us to stay in greater and greater states of interconnectivity and cooperation with other members of this great collective called humanity. And so I think technology is, at that point, a great consciousness shifting technique in and of itself. I mean, one of the in my opinion, greatest technologies for shifting consciousness is art. It's why I created Psionic Designs in the first place. This whole idea of creating art that was intentionally shifting consciousness and not just, not just making some art that was just pretty to look at, but something that served a purpose greater than itself.
That is so true, and that it just as you say that, I actually remembered the oh no. Okay, here we are. I actually just remembered the triangle that I was talking about. I found my picture that I took a screenshot of it. It's basically that if we want to start healing, like let's say ourselves, we have to start from the very beginning. So we can tackle the root cause of anxiety, of depression, and how to just simply remain gratitude and of yourself, of life, and that we're beings. We can literally change our biochemistry, our biology, by just merely setting our intentions, and ourselves respond to those vibrational frequencies, because every single day when we're thinking, we are always emitting frequencies from my mind. We are like literally radio signals, radio towers. But what I found from the upside down triangle, from the missing links, is basically from the start. We have to first think about how did we learn about the origins of life. How did you guys learn about the origins of life? How did I learn about the origins of life? The origins of life started so many years ago, yeah, from just a small tiny organism that after evolved for a time, and expanding for different sorts of life forms through natural selection, exchanging life, exchanging, becoming different entities, different species, different beings, because we classify them. So so we can start off saying that, do we actually know the exact truth on how we actually evolved from? Do we actually know where we actually all started from? We must learn to question ourselves, or we will never get anywhere new. We must always learn to strive for a different answer every single day. So continuing on, and the second step of that pyramid, of that upside down pyramid, was basically, do we know the origins of human life? So it's basically like the first one as well. So and so that this can connect to the third one, which is the relationship to our body. Do we actually know how our body works? Have we discovered everything? If we can come to a study and come to an open space of different sorts of exchanges and experiment and search and new and delve into an inquiry journey into within ourselves, we can find different perspectives and different sorts of motives of looking at ourselves, that we can literally come to a new understanding about how we work, such as that when we think about something like the same, um, I'm gonna have an amazing day today, an amazing day. That vibrational frequency affects my body as well, because what I've learned is that we have, that all of us, we have telomeres that dictate our genes, our DNA. And those telomeres, they react to our consciousness, they react to our mindset, so that every single time, when we live, those and on the edges of those telomeres have like little shoelace cords. That's on the very tip of your shoelace. And every single time when we live, when we go out for our normal day, those telomeres become shortened and shortened and shortened, because of that belief that every single time when a child is born, they say that when we're born, we start to die. But in a matter of fact, when we're born, we can start to live more. Because what I remember is well, that there was this tribal, I think it was in some native tribal country, I think it was in like Colombia or the Amazons, that what they did when a child was born, that child was subjugated to an immense amount of compassion and love. So they can be unified with the heart space. So therefore, their telomeres would start to, we could say, stop shortening, or you could say, in essence, stop shortening. So they were subjugated to love and compassion. So in every single time that they wouldn't grow up, you could say that if we managed to master this, we could, in essence, live forever. But of course, I don't know the proper science of this, and I would love to expand further my consciousness on this subject. I don't know all about it. And that, and then after months into their life, they're subjugated into rigorous amounts of mental training to unify the mindset, the mind, the brain. So in unifying the heart space and the conscious area of the brain, of the mind, unifying these two aspects, in essence, stops the shortening of telomeres of the short core of the short end that's on the edge of the telomeres. So you could say, in essence, they will have a more longer and prospect, a more longer and more beautiful life that to live in. It's all about unifying the heart space and the mind in one, because we learn every single time that life and that the brain controls the heart. But in essence, it's actually a mutual cooperation between the heart space, the heart, and the brain. So that's it. If we can manage to just simply expand ourselves from this concept about who we are, we can discover new aspects of how we work. So the fourth triangle of the upside down triangle is that the relationship to our outer world. So you could definitely find so much connections towards religion, philosophy, science. You must question yourself right now, from your knowledge that you were raised with and the knowledge that you have right now. Are you sure you have the knowledge of how your world of the outer world works? You have the understanding, you have the feeling of how the outer world works, and you've experienced it. And that is something that can never be taken from you, because in essence, you know how the world works because from what you've experienced. But can you expand upon that? Do you know how the world actually works? Because we are energy beings. We create our life. That's a part of our outer world. That's a part of who we are. But there must be always something beyond that, beyond how the outer world works. So, like again, we must come together and learn. So the fifth one is that what is our relationship to our past? Because how you said, Anthony, we become so desensitized in how about imagination that's been lacking about with board games, and that we've been too much in our technology, and so you could say that we must remember, how did our ancestors do it? How did our ancestors heal themselves? How did they do certain aspects on how they did? Because we must learn to integrate our techniques from the past into today's society and adapt it into the modern day. It's very much Fibonacci. You take what you have and you take what there is and you put it together, and it creates an equals, like 1 + 1 is 1, but in our perception, 1 + 1 is still 2, because we have not fused both of those entities together. And so, like I say again, we must come and to learn our ancient techniques of our ancestors to integrate it within our modern way of living. And so the final one is the rule of nature. Is that, like I say again, is it really survival of the fittest? But because that's from what we've learned. Because we could say that society has limited our knowledge on what we learn. So you could say that there is a certain type of system of an amount of knowledge that we can acquire. Like in school systems, there is only a curriculum of certain things that students are allowed to learn. They aren't allowed to learn to meditate, but that's changing now. I've seen it in some posters here and there. Like children are starting to learn about meditation, about connecting with who they are, and at some schools in America, with kids who are in detention, instead of punishing them because that's the wrong thing to do and that's not helping them to understand, that's only feeling that hatred that they have of that the world gives them, they tell them and they teach them to meditate. And that's something extraordinary that teaching the young to just simply connect with themselves. And that's one way that we can start to learn to become grateful, is that to become something that we were not for the next generation. What we lacked in a parent figure, we can do, we can be ourselves for the next generation. So that's it. So that's just the simple triangle that of life. If we can just simply accumulate all of what we've learned for our life, we can just become, like, in essence, greater beings than who we are. In essence, we are the superheroes that we dreamt that we always wanted to be. We can in essence become extraordinary, become universal. We are just a part of an intricate system of life. That was a mouthful.
No, that was wonderful.
Nice.
I really resonate with a lot of those points, and I think that it's not just in essence that we can become magnificent and wonderful. I think that
We have to go struggles. We have to go through struggles and everything.
well, I think that in the process, it's even more than that. We're discovering that as we're playing that role, as we're acting like that hero that we always wanted to be, we're discovering that in fact we are that hero we always wanted to be. We are awesome. We are amazing, and it's just the spending that time practicing being in that headspace. Which is why, like I was pointing out earlier, the gaming. I think you're right, Anthony. I think we do need to see more things like that out there. Like I firmly believe that role playing could be a very powerful transformation and self help technique, and all it would take would be somebody who really wanted to use it that way.
Yeah, just a group of people getting together, and it's imagination. It's essentially going back to how we were when we were younger. We had these for most quite happy, fulfilled lives in the way we socialize, and the social aspect changes as we get older. But yeah, I definitely agree with that technique, and some very good points in what you made there, Brandon. One thing I wanted to add to all this topic of conscious shifting techniques. I think when people like get together and there's kind of we start to see like a shift towards people gravitate to what's working and what's helping everyone, so then we start to get these pyramid structures, just like you're outlining. We get pyramid structures, and we've had we get leaders, we get social leaders, political leaders, and the old way, the way which we're kind of like growing out of at the moment is this hierarchical system. Is how all business functions. You have the big boss at the top, and so power deviates down as you go down. And what we're seeing now is kind of a gravitation towards both those systems interacting, where we have the upwards triangle of power from the top spreading out, but we also have this inverse triangle. So we have the people at the top, and then the few are the foundation. So the people who have mass consciousness help to serve the ones that are sort of segmented in a way. And that's we look at new big businesses that have come out, like Amazon, Uber, Airbnb. They all connect people to people. There's no longer one centralized system that's flowing out. Even with this new cryptocurrency phase, it's not centralized currency anymore. It's decentralized. It's people connecting to people. I mean, look at there's like a very good sort of case study for this. If you look at in the I think it was the early 90s when there was Microsoft, they launched they had Netscape, and then they had this Britannia encyclopedia, online encyclopedia, and it had a few people centralized in one spot trying to get all this information collected and free for everyone to read and learn from. It's very centralized. And then Wikipedia came out and just dominated it, because you have the resource becomes infinite. You have anyone being able to put into it, and anyone be able to sort of take the lead, and then the lead passes on. You know, we've had it traditionally where the leader of a social society, the leader of a thought, the leader of whatever you want to call it, takes the lead, and then they say the leader, and if anyone wants to challenge them, it's like, you know, a fight for the alpha position. Whereas this other system is more like, okay, someone takes the lead, and then someone else can take the lead, and someone else can take the lead, and whoever's offering the best situation or the best solution at the time for the situation, they get to run with it. And there's no problem with that. There's no problem with switching the lead for a time. It's just focus of attention where it needs to be at that any given moment. And that's kind of like what I want to say with that, and that's I guess all I have to say about that.
I like it because that's I was recently got to go see an art exhibit that a friend of mine, thank you, Mikey, for being awesome. He was or is a part of an art collective. And so they did this installation exhibit that is this immersive experience. And so everyone working on it, they have different specialties, you know, and they're creating one vision from more than 15, 20 people's, you know, collective abilities. And they didn't have one vision to start with. They brought all those people together and let everybody flow ideas. And when somebody had an idea, that they ran with it until somebody else had an idea. And when two ideas were conflicting, their easiest way to resolve it was to remove ego and let the collective decide. And it worked, and it worked well. I mean, it was one of the most amazing art exhibits that I have ever walked through. And I know that had they had more space, it would have only been more epic than it was. And actually, that art exhibit, it's called The Shift, and it was entirely about shifting consciousness. But I think that, you know, that whole idea of, can we change the way the mode we're operating on? You know, that's what you're getting at there, right? And
yeah,
I think
yeah, there was a final point I wanted to kind of like tie in there, which kind of left me just at the end of that. But it was something I read recently in the new book. The author of Eat, Pray, Love. She's written a book recently. I can't remember the title right now, but it's something magic. And do you remember what it is? Huh? Oh, it's just called Big Magic. So the book's called Big Magic, and there's one part in there. It's all about the kind of the generation of ideas and the sharing of ideas, and this links into the shift in consciousness. Like, 'cause we're talking about not just shifting consciousness in our own personal experiences, but also a social shift or a global shift of consciousness amongst humans. And there's something that goes something like this. So when we want to help or change the minds of other people, we want to help them see a different perspective, we often feel like we want to help them. We need to help others. And if you build a structure of your work based on the want or need to help other people, and you really try and hit that on the head, you really want to help someone, you end up talking to people through the need to have a reaction from them, and then all they feel is the weight of your need to help them, and that doesn't resonate. People just feel talked at, and there's no spontaneity in how they receive what you're saying, because what needs to happen is helping ourselves. And that's just like we were talking about in the beginning about, I mentioned filling up the cup, and we we help ourselves and we share our stories with the intention of helping others, and that is what resonates. That's what gets through. And I think that's what we need more of, because there are a lot of you can feel it. You can feel it when someone talks with the intention of trying to make you do something or change your mind. You just go, okay, yeah. You kind of go along with it. But when you hear a story that touches your heart, when you hear someone's experience just get through to you, that's what changes your mind, and that's what really gets to you. So there's a slight difference in the way it's presented, but a big outcome, big difference in the outcome.
Indeed. That reminds me of that. It's been a few different studies, but the idea that if a teacher is told that a student is a genius, then the test scores for that child will go up, even if the child's never told, because the teacher's expectation and attitude towards the student is as though the child doesn't even need their help, as though the child is a genius. And that expectation changes how they interact with the student and improves the student's own view of themselves. I mean, that's it right there. So if we're projecting our need to fix problems, and that's our motivation, then our motivation isn't to help people at that point. It's to validate ourselves. Whereas if we just want to share what helped us genuinely and honestly with whoever wants to listen, with that intention to help, then we've changed that polarity, and we're not egoically trying to find validation for our superior knowledge or experience. We're just genuinely, authentically trying to help in the only way we can, just to share our experiences.
Exactly. Sharing what feels good.
A lot, man.
It's all about the resonance of it. It's like connecting with a person with something that's happened to them in the past, and so therefore you can connect with them because you can empathize with them. So therefore, you can sprout change because you have shone your light so brightly that you can cause another person's light to shine. It's all about just sharing your experiences and just being confident, and just in that radiance will inspire more people to shine their own light, therefore making a chain reaction. What I just realized that we humans, we are just basically just organisms. We are about conscious ones, like conscious organisms that just react to each other. They have chances of colliding. They have chances of reproducing. It's just various particles of amounts of just on spontaneously different circumstances that can occur. It's just like us, just like how Jason Silva once said in one of his talks, one of his videos, that saying that we represent a lot of what we represent, and we also inspire what we see in everyday life. In our neurons in our minds, it looks like the structure of a universe. Many of us many pictures of in the public, just people walking around the crowded areas, it looks like an ant colony. So you can say that many of how we live, it's a much of an inspiration of what is already natural. We built what is already natural. We built what is already made, but in something that suits our needs.
I love that. And I think that brings us to a great closing point. And I would like that to be the three of us just taking a second to meditate on the gratitude that, we have for everything that's happened and that has led us to here. And not only that, but just the deep gratitude we have knowing that getting the opportunity to take a moment and share our stories and our thoughts has the potential to help someone else, and not just the one someone else. This is out there. This is on the internet. And eventually, 7 billion people, 10 billion people throughout the course of time from now into the future could wind up watching this, and maybe it will have some kind of a positive impact for them. And that possibility, the possibility of that happening is enough for me to be truly and deeply grateful. And not just to those people, but to everyone and everything that came before that gave us this opportunity, and every choice that each one of you has made, and myself included, that brought us here today in this magnanimous synchronicity that is our existence.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. If anything we do helps just one person, that's enough.
Indeed.
It's more than enough.
I would just like to say just one more last thing that I am grateful for is just literally just the both of you. I am humbled to be in your presence, especially you, Joshua. You're such a beautiful person. Like literally, I can feel with each word that you say, that you talk, it's like there's passion in each word that you give off, that resonance, that you really want to help people, and that I really feel deeply humbled for you as well, meeting you, Anthony, as well. I just have this. I just have like this chance to really help and just expand my mind and just help people and how they grow, and just let me just enjoy life, just who we are, what we are. Just thank you both literally just for this opportunity, for helping me to grow, and just helping each other in this world to grow. I can really feel the both of you right now.
Thank you guys.
Namaste.
Namaste.